I have a bunch of topics I can cover. I'm going to do pretty free form, just going through my work and kind of my career trajectory up to this point. I'm more of a practical industrial designer with a few facets kind of sneaking out into other fields, but I do Solidworks 3D modeling, physical prototyping. I'm not super good at making things very aesthetic and good looking. A lot of my work over the years has been building on previous designs and languages that exist already. So you don't really get to make something blindingly new that often in the design world, at least in my experience. I've worked in all kinds of environments over the years. I started out as a small consultancy in Chicago. It was me and the two owners. So that was almost like an apprenticeship for the first 3 or 4 years of my career. There have been all kinds of market crashes and things that affect career trajectories over the years, and I'll get to those at the very end. But the topics that I really want to cover are being a maker and using Arduino, SolidWorks and 3D printing, model making and props, as you can see in the background, video game controllers, Nerf and Lego, wearables and wearable electronics, toys, games, and Kickstarter, and a kind of a fun little project I made, which is called Audiobots. They're kind of creative, or they're character-based toys. So if anybody wants to hear about any of those specifically, just shout out, or else I'll just start with Maker and Arduino stuff. Okay, so making an Arduino. Let's see, I gotta open up some notes. So Simone Gertz, Adam Savage, and Grant Imahara are kind of heroes to me, the queen of crappy robots and some Mythbusters. They're fun to follow on YouTube, things like that. They're really inspiring. And some of the things they make are amazingly over my head, so that's okay, but it's always good to aspire to things. So one of the things that I'm currently working on is not really a commercial product. It's just a thing for my house. All my props are on the floor. I'm making a remote controlled robot RC lawnmower for my yard. I have a pretty big yard. So this is the head that will drive the joystick. It's got 2 little servo motors on it, stick onto things. It'll hook up to a Arduino IoT 33. And then I'll have another one in my hand that'll do wireless communication to that via a little joystick. So I'm going to set that up kind of like the Nintendo Wii nunchucks. So it'll be kind of single-handed with a trigger. It'll be like a dead man switch for the actual lawnmower blade, which I don't want to get running away from me if it gets out of range. And then the rest will just be kind of joystick on this guy. So let me share my screen for a little bit, and then I'll jump back to this to show you my progress on that guy. So this is, can you guys see what I'm showing on my screen? It looks like an orange tank. Okay, so the back end is basically a power wheelchair that I got off of Craigslist for like $100. You can get these pretty cheaply locally. It's a little bit of a weird experience because it's usually from a family member who's had someone in their family pass recently. So it'd be a little careful about just being kind. It's a little gross cleaning them up because they're very personal objects. So there's lots of just hair, dead skin, and all the things that are very personal kind of human objects that kind of come off of you are on them. So you want to clean it up. So I did that, took it apart, kind of figured out how it works. The hand control is a little too integrated to actually break it apart and start rewiring things. So that's why I went with the decision to just control the joystick remotely as if I was there with my hands on it. So I basically took off the seat, threw it away, threw it in the recycling. And then I got an electric lawnmower off of Craigslist also for like 20 bucks. It had no batteries. It was really rusted and it kind of crummy. No batteries. So I had to get a pair of new motorcycle batteries that go on it. So that was like 24 volts each, or 24 volts total. So it matched the lawn or the wheelchair's power. But when I tried to power them both at the same time, all my electronics started smoking. So apparently it was too big of a power draw. I'm not an electrical engineer by any means. I'm learning a lot of stuff. Arduino has made things really accessible. Arduino is a very mature and fleshed out platform at this point. There's enough forums and comments and videos. You can basically do anything you need nowadays. With minimal programming knowledge, I am definitely not a programmer. I can do like HTML from 20 years ago. That's about it. I did mess around a little bit with some welding. There's this kind of bumper tube on the front. Underneath this black bar on the front with the stripes on it is some angle bracket. I didn't even need to weld that. The housing of the lawnmower is all like HDPE plastic, I think, which is pretty soft and flexible even at low temperatures. So it'll survive in my garage without cracking over the years. I haven't actually gotten it fully hooked up yet. So this is still an experiment. My neighbors really want me to get it working so I don't have an ugly yard. One of the joys of living in a little cul-de-sac kind of thing. So that's my current kind of wild project. I'm stopping sharing and back to my notes. So yeah, next is SolidWorks and 3D printing. I am going to, let me see what I have here in terms of props. Well, I'll just go into sharing SolidWorks in general. So I'm going to share my screen again, and this will be sharing my view of SolidWorks 2019. So here's a bunch of projects that are kind of relevant to what we're talking about. I have this one up here. This is a crazy fold-out sword that I was going to make for a prop, semi-related to the game Minecraft, kind of inspired by that. I have a line of other Minecraft-inspired props that I can show off. This is a product I made while at ThinkGeek. So this is a Bluetooth wireless game controller for iOS or Android. I actually am on one of the early patents for the first iOS game controller, which basically we took a wireless Bluetooth keyboard, which is pretty much supported by everybody, and translated it basically into having the WASD keys on your keyboard doing up, down, right, and then AB and all the other buttons on your controller. So the first thing we ever did was the Icade, which was a April Fool's product, which if you know ThinkGeek, every year we would do crazy fake products, and occasionally they would turn into real ones. So let's see. This is an original kind of rendering of the Icade, which had the original iPad, which just slid in the top and then would connect via that wireless Bluetooth connection. We actually made the first prototype before the iPad was on sale. So I made a mock-up, which was just a print of the front and back on a couple layers of foam core and taped it up and put it in the box for the video we did. Later on, we did some updates with some manufacturing partners. So this was a smaller version, which would hold your iPhone. It was designed around the iPhone 4 at the time. So it had a pass-through for the charging cable, but basically the same electronics as in earlier Icade products. So there was the original Icade, the Icade Junior, and then this little 8-bitty, I think we called it, which was a knockoff of the original NES game controller. So following a little bit with some more of the gaming stuff, this is a fake product that I made that I never released, which was a portable version of the 80s vector graphics console, which was kind of a luggable object. It looked a lot like the original Macintosh computers, these big bricks. But it had little cartridges and you slide it in. But this version, I think I intended to put an iPhone inside. So that was a good trick for making props and things. You just slide an iPhone in and put some graphics on the screen, and it lets you cheat a lot. You get fake screens that way really easily. This one I actually printed out and it looked okay, but it's not something I would ever share. Just kind of a fun thing to mess around with, using somebody's existing styling. It had this nice aluminum joystick. The actual controller kind of folds up into the body of the unit and had 4 buttons. So I was kind of duplicating the functionality, things like that of it. I made a little bit of an affordance for how some of the electronics would work in the 80s. They didn't really have LCD screens back then, so I forget what company, but a couple of them made actually very tiny cathode ray tubes that were really weirdly shaped. They actually bent around a little bit. So I think one of those would fit in there, and I had some room for giant chunky like C or D cell batteries to fill this thing up, and then it would run for like a half hour probably in the 80s. Another fake product that never went anywhere was, this is what I called Apocalypse 1984, which was kind of a mashup of a speak and spell. So you had the speak and spell buttons and some, not 7-segment, but segmented alphanumeric displays. So it would chime what your text input would be. And then up here, which isn't pictured in this rendering, was a little persistence of vision LED globe. So it was a little arc of green LEDs that would blink on and off as it spun around, and it showed the map of the Earth. And then you would be like targeting different cities with different kind of weapons. So you could have Bigfoot attack New York City or something, and then it would give you feedback on how much damage there was. It was a pretty dark thing, but it was meant to be funny. Another April Fool's that actually did get launched was this game controller for a Steam-powered Steam console. So this was at least 5 or 6 years ago, back when the computer company Valve, or the game company Valve, was trying to break into the living room market. And they were selling these very, very small little kind of pass-throughs that would do your big high-end PC gaming, your PC tower in your office would pipe the game into your living room via HDMI pass-through, and then you'd play it on this weird little controller. So we made a fake product that was a steampunk-inspired one, and this is kind of what I came up with. Sort of Art Deco-y, very steampunk, little kind of mechanical typewriter keys, a little bit of Edison light bulb stuff, lots of brass, chrome, and phenolic plastic. And one of the products I did actually make while at ThinkGeek was the Build on Brick mug. So this has been actually knocked off a ton. If you go on Amazon to look for it, you'll find more fake ones and knockoffs than the actual legitimate article. But this was a product that I worked on from start to finish. We were talking about products at ThinkGeek that were selling well. So we had a really informal structure there, where we had, not really weekly, but every once in a while I would have meetings about what was selling well. ThinkGeek had, when I started there, it was like 90% existing products. So we had buyers who would buy cool things. A lot of them were kind of gray market from Japan. So they were geeky stuff. So it'd be like a weird Gundam thing, or some kind of knockoff Star Wars thing that we would sell for a little bit and then get a cease and desist for and have to take down. So the thing that inspired this was a long time ago, there were coffee mugs that looked like high-end telephoto lenses. So this was designed for photography geeks, and we were talking about how we could kind of reproduce the success of that. That was an actual legitimate product that wasn't licensed to anybody. So we were just buying those off the open market and selling them on the website. So I thought about things that geeks would like and that were kind of fun to accessorize and play with on your desk. And I've been a lifelong Lego fan. So this is inspired by Lego Technic. It's actually built and designed around existing bricks, except for the inside, which is this giant vessel. Let me open up an image of what that looks like. So here's some of the earlier process work. So this is if you would build it vertically using kind of stacked regular bricks, a couple of different options for that, kind of pixel art from a top-down view. These are some of the other options for making it out of stacks of plates and bricks. So this is probably closest to what I actually went with. And over here on the far left is an idea that gets a little bit further away from traditional actual Lego geometry. There's kind of this weird sacred geometry of 8 millimeters per stud and things like that. So that was having building surfaces on all the faces. So that was some of the early process work. And this, you can kind of see, let me see, get this, so turn off perspective. So this is me working out a sketch of how the plates would stack up. And then let's pull back, it looks like. So here's a really early just extrusion of the profile and starting to add studs onto it and more studs galore. And oh, it actually went pretty fast. Oh, it went to the end. So adding the Technic holes on the sides. It's kind of an unusual pattern and a lot of reviewers didn't understand how you use it. So the Technic pattern is meant to have a spacing across this way that matches the spacing up and down, but you have to pass over a couple of these holes here. Let me open up the other image I have of it. Okay, so this is the original spec sheet we made and sent out to a manufacturer in Asia. So this is a better rendering of the final product with little lines that kind of show you where the line breaks between parts would be. So across these 4 holes is about the same distance as across these 5 or 6 holes up and down. So you could use a beam in either direction and connect them. So we did pretty low impact design work there. A lot of our stuff was just an illustration by a graphic designer of a cool looking ceramic bowl that would be like a shark's face opening up and you would eat your cereal out of the shark's mouth. So this was a little more in depth because it was very technical. So I did the full CAD for it, just some material options for how it needed to work as a real product. I don't think they actually made it out of the right plastic for us. It was supposed to be ABS, but it was a little too cheap. So probably they got away with something. Some kind of measured drawings, half scale, because it was a 8.5 by 11 sheet that we would print out. But this was basically what we'd send over to Asia and have some of our manufacturers quote on. And so we'd do a bunch of design work, a bunch of research, and then kick it over there for quoting for a couple 2 to 6 weeks. And then people would send back estimates on how much it would cost to produce something. We had a bunch of different factories and manufacturers who we would work with. Not all of them would necessarily want to work on these projects because some of them were a little crazy. So I'm going to stop sharing that again. Oops. Go back to my face. So this is the actual brick mug. We made it in a ton of different colors. We made a lot of Lego-based products. I was actually at New York Toy Fair when we launched this, and I was working the booth there. So I was standing behind this tiny little pedestal with a ton of loose Lego bricks and sticking them on this thing. And a huge crowd of folks from the Lego booth walked by, and I didn't know that they were actually from Lego. And I was doing this whole spiel about how great it was, and then I looked at their the name tag on them, and I kind of went white as a sheet and said it was not licensed by them, and they seemed okay with it. They were a little angry that they didn't come up with it themselves, but whatever. They didn't sue us. ThinkGeek is kind of out of business nowadays. They got bought by GameStop a few years back, and it was a weird situation. I'm not going to comment too much on it, but I left before things got really bad. So let me see, what else do I have here? So some more 3D printing stuff. This is part of that Minecraft inspired sword. It's just a mechanism that kind of folds out. There's kind of a 4-bar linkage here. It's meant to be a little goofy. Cyberpunk inspired things are always overly complicated and kind of retro or anachronistic. So this is kind of CNC'd aluminum or something in the future, and it would fold out and have like a big superheated wire or something. It would be kind of a fake lightsaber. Just kind of a fun prop thing. Go jump over here and grab some other things. So this is a wooden Minecraft sword. I hope all you guys have at least played it a little bit. Kind of the first thing you get in Minecraft, or first thing you can make, is this wooden sword. So I made a kind of training sword out of wood that like a kid would play with. Next step up on the kind of craftability is the stone sword, and nobody historically has really made actual sword. So this is a little goofy. It's this kind of flint napped big chunk of obsidian. If you actually hit something with it, it would break instantly. So this is 3D printed and painted and wrapped in just twine. Next step up is the sword, the actual iron sword. So this is the closest to a real sword you can get. I put a little creeper face on there. So this, and this are 3D printed with a little bit of wire wrapped around it. I think I used Plastidip to make the grip a little grippier. This part is just a big piece of wood that's wrapped in aluminum tape, which is really cool. I learned that from Adam Savage. So instead of painting this and trying to polish it or make it out of aluminum, you can see there's probably little shiny gaps on there where the tape edges are. And the craziest one is the gold sword. So this is the gold sword, which is a squid inspired rapier. So this part is, I just got this online. Apparently you can buy sword parts like that. The handle is just 3D printed on a regular FDM printer out of regular plastic. It's kind of hollow. So the first time I did this, I was holding it in a vise and I crunched this because it was only like 10% infill, but it's painted with some kind of pearlescent paint, and then I dabbed some colors on there to make it look a little bit more natural. Little green emerald eyes, because when you talk to villagers, you trade things for emeralds. The handle is actually this really, really expensive 3D printed thing that I had laser scanned and then 3D printed on shapeways.com out of their stainless steel powder. So this is something you can't really do at home. I guess you could probably print this on a resin printer. It's a little big for kind of consumer level ones, but this is, I think it's actually gold plated stainless steel. And the stainless steel part was the most expensive. The gold plating was like a $10 bonus on it. And then I painted it a lot with some just black tempera paint, or some sort of paint to make it look aged, because otherwise it looks really oddly new. So aging things is really good for prop making. So this was some pipe cleaners bent around, kind covered in epoxy, and then I got a ton of little O-rings and glued them on along there, and then kind of painted the whole thing and sent it off to a bureau to be laser scanned, and got the CAD back and separated the kind of body of the squid from the 3D printed part. So that was fun. Way too expensive, kind of a weird indulgence that you can do when you're a grown-up. Let's see, what else? What is next? So model making and props, I got lots of that back there. I've only made a couple of these up here, and I think they're all but 2 are actually related to properties. So there's that kind of orange and white one. That was a product I designed while at ThinkGeek. It was called Battle Struct. So it was this kind of role play weapon system. It didn't do anything. It just makes sounds, but it was meant to break apart and you could reassemble it into like a chainsaw sword or something weird. So that was a goofy thing. We presented at Toy Fair in like 2013, but that's also the year that Nerf made their, what do they call it? They had another system that would snap apart, but it actually shot darts, and they had a huge name behind it. So this never went anywhere. Another one is actually a, that one I think is just a paint of a Nerf Raven Strike or something. The first time I ever did kind of aging of a prop. But the rest are either purchased, finished products. Like I think the Aliens one is an actual electric airsoft gun. That giant Halo thing is a crazy prop replica that lights up. But I did 3D print a couple of these off of files that I purchased on Etsy. A few I designed myself and 3D printed. So that's kind of a fun thing. It's kind of a fun side hustle to make weird stuff and sell it on Etsy. I have a little store where I sell STL files for some of these and some of the other products I've made. Okay, game controllers. So I was talking a little bit about the Icade and stuff. So this is the actual product. I don't think my iPhone 12 mini fits in it anymore. So, but it's basically this plastic piece. All the electronics are built in here. There's a little bit of a battery door or a couple double A's and a pass-through for the charging cable. But we worked with, I think the company's name was Ion, who made those really cheapo turntables that you'd see in Best Buy. So we worked with them. They basically took this CAD and went straight to tooling. So I didn't make the hole for the pass-through for the USB quite big enough. It was line to line, which as a design engineer, I'm learning you don't do anymore. You have to have clearance and tolerance and things. So you can get it through there if you have it lined up perfectly, but it has to be an official Apple USB cable or else it just doesn't work. So kind of fun things. Sometimes manufacturers get a jump on you and just go wild, and you end up with an actual prototype first article after like a month, when most of the time that's like a 4-month process waiting for them to get in gear and actually quote on you. So yeah, I love working on game controllers, things like that. I worked at SteelSeries, which is a high-end gaming peripheral company. I actually designed the mouse that I'm using right now. So this, I think it's the Sensei or something. I forget what it's called. This is the righty only one. I did another one that was ambidextrous, so it's symmetrical down the middle. So this is another thing where I started the job and they had a huge product line already. So I didn't get to do the styling work of it. I did get to do all the surface modeling in SolidWorks, a little bit of the pattern design. You can see there's this kind of crosses that are triangular. So this is a rubber pad, a little bit of the skating surfaces to keep it off of your mouse pad. But yeah, that was actually kind of a whirlwind project. I started there in the summer of 2015, I think, and had that 2 mice done by November or something. It was crazy. And I did a bunch of other projects for them that didn't get released, but I didn't work there super long because they didn't do super well financially. Let me see, do I have those other images? There's my portfolio. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen a little bit here. So this is my portfolio, the most recent version of it, which is pretty out of date. This is probably from like 2016, maybe. I don't know. So I've had a couple jobs since then. It's pretty out of date. It's printable, but it's also a small PDF that you can email to somebody or have on a website or Dropbox for downloading. It's for case study projects. So this is probably useful for you guys to see. I'm not very good at self-promotion or graphic design for sure. So you'll see some bad design here. But these are kind of 4 fun projects. Just a little introduction of myself. This is the Steel Series stuff. So this is a project that didn't get released. So these are some headsets that they have been making forever, since before I even worked there. So I didn't work on the headsets, but we made this stand that had a sensor up at the top that would detect if you'd placed your headset on it, and it would switch between the sound in your PC going to the headset or going to your room speakers just automatically when you set it down. And then there was this big kind of control deck below it for volume control, and they had a channel kind of fader for your chat in the game or your music that you were listening to your headphones. So this is kind of what the final product would have looked like. This is just some earlier work with one of their existing keyboards and their existing headset. So this is some of the early process work. It was a little weird, but frustratingly typical that I started there and they didn't really have all their files and information and images organized well enough to kick off a project. So in the beginning, I actually modeled my own headset. So this is not something that ever existed. It's just this kind of goofy, overly rounded, fun headset with a big microphone bar and a little scrolling text field there, which I thought was kind of fun. And this was one of the very early designs I had, and it looked way too much like the knob on a washing machine. So we didn't go with that, obviously. But I did a bunch of kind of iterations for that early, non-technical, non-mechanical, just kind of the interface project parts of it. So the volume control, the fader control, and a stand. That was it. So that's in all these. This one looked like a parking meter. This one looked like a rotary phone. And then as they kind of collected more and more information and got it to me and told me about what the product should look like, I started honing in on what they wanted and what would be more successful for them as a product. So the actual control deck started to slim down, look a little bit more like some of their keyboards. The headset stand had the most freedom at this point. So I was playing around with some kind of 2-color, not overmolded, but kind of intermeshing shells of different colors and materials. There's always going to be kind of this U-shaped yoke at the top that holds the headphone headband. But you can see, so nothing really came out of the first generation. Generation B had something that kind of led forward. This kind of cucumber shaped thing for the stand led to some more exploration of doing just plastic stands. So a lot of this is a mishmash of parts that could be kind of interchanged quickly. So there was the stand, there was the knobs, and there was the electronics box. So there's a bunch that are kind of similar to this one. And then after I presented those, they actually let me know that they actually had an existing headset stand, which was kind of not a stamped, but a formed strip of thick sheet aluminum. So we started doing more experimentation around this sheet metal version. So more boxes that I could explore on my own separately from the stand. Had this little pad on the top that was rubber that had their logo in it. This one, we start to see an optical sensor there instead of, I think there was a button or some sort of weighted switch for some of the earlier products. So this is a little bit from that celery inspired design. It's a little kind of a curvy cross section with a kind of tortured stamping up there of the metal. It wouldn't be simple to form, but it was more structural and more fun to look at. And this is some of the interface pieces, the kind of washing machine, rotary dial phone, high-end stereo equipment with these kind of very small lines, big, beefy, heavy knobs. And then further down the line, we got to talking about having glowing elements that would be LEDs behind a kind of smoked glass or dark plastic. Chat? Sorry, I'm trying to see if there's a chat. Oh, okay. Yeah, lighting up through there, lots of exploration. And this is kind of the final presentation. Their logo was the only thing that you would see while it was not lit up, and then the interface would actually show up later on. So this is that Icade 8-bitty line, just kind of a feel for making a family of products. So a little bit of the ergonomics control. I chopped up a PS2 controller to figure out where to put buttons and things, some early renderings, figuring out how to assemble it in a factory. Well, I didn't think I had this in there. This is a really early project from that first company I worked for. It was a snowplow controller for contractor snowplows. You guys are in Rochester, you know snow. So guys who bolt snowplows to the front of their car, they buy those things for a few grand and make a few grand back every winter. But a lot of the times they have pneumatic controls for tilting and steering the controller, the blade on the front. So we did a bunch of exploration illustrations. These 3 are done in Illustrator, just a front view kind of shaded illustration, exploring where the buttons go, exploded views of parts, early first shots testings, reusing stuff from my gaming career, kind of learning how to do things. And then the last one in this block is Audiobots, which are these kind of fun little characters I kind of came up with at ThinkGeek. So this was going to be a standalone product that had a sensor on the bottom that would detect different colors of light. So you put it on something and it would play a note based on the color of your shirt or something. So we had a really fun character to base things on, and I started messing around with how it could be more of a musical toy. So this here, he's running around on a kind of a railroad track that you put colored tiles under. This is another thing that I tried to make, which was an iPhone app that would look at cards and spin slowly around, so you could be able to put notes down. But then I really wanted to make it more of a character study for different instruments turning into characters. So this is a little girl who has a skirt that's a piano, and a little microphone guy, guitar girl, drum guy, DJ guy, bell, theremin. So kind of weird stuff there. I'm gonna go back to stopping sharing. You'll see my face again. So yeah, let's see. I do lots of stuff with Lego products. Nerf is kind of a fun thing that if you look on Reddit or something, there's all kinds of communities for modding and redesigning Nerf blasters. But the thing is, they're intimidatingly amazing. So it's not something you can like easily break into. You can kind of mess around with it because 3D printing is so accessible nowadays, but you can't really design something to sell to Hasbro or even sell on Etsy, because there's guys who are just crazy out there. They're amazing, and it's a really wonderful world to get into, to look at. But I've been doing this for 20 years, and it intimidates the hell out of me. So yeah, so that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. If there's any questions, we can talk through anything. I got a whole couch full of more products I can show you guys. I have a bunch of
Willy, thank you so much. That's a great roundabout discussion on a lot of things. You're a prolific inventor, entrepreneur, and we'd love to hear a little bit more about that. But we just want to give you a round of applause for a great presentation.